New data from NASA this morning shows some communities in the South Bay shifting toward the ocean. Radar from JPL reveals the land slipping toward the ocean by as much as 4 inches per week last fall. Researchers say that's enough to put human life and infrastructure at risk. Areas affected include Rancho Palos Verdes, Rolling Hills Estates, and San Pedro. The Palos Verdes Peninsula has experienced accelerated land movement due to Hurricane Hilary's record-breaking rainfall totals in 2023. Multiple roadways, homes, and infrastructure also damaged due to the continuous land movement. I had to read that twice to make sure that was correct.
Yeah.
And it is. I mean, you think about what we've seen in PV, it's suddenly moved, and yes, all of those things were threatened.
Right. This is not an anomaly. This is the future.
We can expect fires of this intensity and worse in the future. The types of fires we've seen over the past 10 years are qualitatively different from the previous 100 years.
Wait. The types of fires are different.
Yeah.
How has fire changed?
In a number of ways. The most potent and frightening way, the most obvious to the layperson, people like us, is it moves faster and with greater intensity.
Is happening much stronger than they had anticipated, that the climate is proving more sensitive to those emissions than the models would suggest, and that this is going to result in even wilder weather than we had last year. If you think back to the droughts that led to the LA wildfires, the flash floods from intense rainfall in Valencia, and indeed intense rainfall here in the UK. So all these things are now attributed to climate change, that is making natural weather systems much more aggressive, much worse, with greater effects on our built environment.
The world has just experienced the hottest January on record, according to new data. The EU's Climate Monitoring Service says last month's temperatures reached 1.75 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Previous 2 years were also record-breaking periods for global temperatures.
Scientists are concerned the world might be entering a new accelerated phase of climate change. That's because hot weather records continue to be broken. The latest one is just one last month, January. Europe's Copernicus Climate Change Service says it was the hottest January on record, averaging 1.75 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. That's above the internationally agreed target.
From what happened to why it happened and what in the world is next. This disaster is as bad as just about anybody here can remember. But is it really just the new normal?
Nature is telling us, I can't take this anymore. I cannot support you if you keep treating me this way.
John Valiant is the author of Fire Weather, on the front lines of a burning world.
And then you get a cooling of the average temperature of the Earth. That doesn't seem to be happening, and that is making people worry that maybe there's some kind of fundamental change in the way in which the atmosphere, the systems on the Earth, the ocean currents and atmosphere that distribute heat around the world are changing in some way. You heard Samantha Burgess of Copernicus there talking about the fact that the oceans outside of the Pacific are much warmer than on average. That suggests that maybe there's something happening in the oceans that mean they're not cooling in the way we would normally expect at this phase in the weather oscillation, and people are obviously naturally anxious that if we are seeing an acceleration, that is very dangerous.
So the emissions from fire, these trillions of fires that we make every day, has created this artificially warm climate.
And so, he says, we get more intense fires, stronger hurricanes, and hotter heat waves.
Scientists were expecting actually a slight drop in January's global temperatures compared to this time last year, but it didn't come to fruition, and conversely, the opposite took place instead.
Yeah, that's right, and they are baffled by that. Last year was extremely hot, the hottest year on record, and there had been an expectation that was largely due, or partly due, to a climate phenomenon, or rather a natural weather phenomenon in the Pacific Ocean called El Nino, which warms the atmosphere, added about 0.2 degrees. But that current has now flipped, and that should have started to cool the atmosphere, but that hasn't happened. And that is a worry that perhaps the upward trend now is as a result of carbon dioxide and methane emissions.
And those journeys out on the edge of the Arctic expose what's becoming clear. Winter isn't what it used to be.
The whole north is changing. That's the biggest thing. Like, you can't count on anything anymore.
And that's a problem for the town's famous polar bears. The chance to get this close draws thousands of visitors from around the world to this tiny town of fewer than 900. And there's no sign we're cutting enough planet warming emissions to stop it.
It is a scary thought to think that the polar bears may not be here one day.
A La Nina normally has a cooling effect on the climate, but when you zoom out from the tropical Pacific and you look at other ocean areas, you see that the temperatures are still at record high for most ocean basins. Also, when we look at air temperatures across the globe, we've seen really large anomalies, particularly over the Arctic region, where those anomalies have been 20 degrees above average. So that's a huge anomaly. So that combined gave us an insight early on in the month that January would be much warmer than average.
Well, let's zoom out now and look at the data showing the long-term trend. This graph shows the global average temperatures for the month of January going back decades. The colour, you can see it's getting deeper and deeper red. That's the hotter the temperature. It shows that in the last few years, January temperatures have become more than 1 degree higher than pre-industrial levels. And it shows that January this year has been the hottest of all. Well, our climate editor Justin Rowlatt explained more about that key concern with the data that suggests climate change might actually be accelerating.
The fires, experts say, are a warning on a much bigger scale that the Earth will continue to get drier and more volatile unless we do something about climate change. But of course, warnings only work when people listen.
Have we just pushed nature too far?
The upside to all of this is nature is inviting us sternly to re-engage. It's only going to get hotter. And so nature is saying, wake up. We are in this together. It behooves all of us to focus on the real causes and to understand that this really can happen to us, to you and to me, not just to people we know or people on TV.